Hi, today I'm going to show you how to hang a door. We're going to start with a hardest case scenario. We're taking an old door, an existing hole, making a new door jamb, hanging that on the old door and then putting it back in the hole. It's way easier if you get pre-hung doors, but we're working with what we want to do. We're trying to combine a whole bunch of different looks with this. So to get the height, there's a couple ways where we can do that. Outside doors, which this is an outside door, they typically have a threshold in that, so the height off the floor is really critical. The threshold on this is a 1/2 inch thick or a 1/2 inch tall, so we need to have our door, it doesn't have a rubber sweep on the bottom, so we need to have our door just barely clear a 1/2 inch, so maybe 9/16 of an inch off of the floor. So two ways we can do that. We can take the jamb, which, since I couldn't find any jambs, we made these out of 2x6. Fraction of the cost, and you get what you want. I didn't like what we could buy. So with the one way to figure out your hinge height is take your threshold, add a 1/2 inch down here, set your jamb just over just a 9/16 clearance down here, and that sets your height right. Or you can measure the existing jamb off the floor to the bottom or the top of the top hinge and mark that, which I did in this case. So you want to take the door off so you get your hinge height right. We set the new jamb alongside the door. You flip the hinges over. Make sure your marks are lined up correctly. And the best way to mark your jamb with this is not using a pencil. It's using a knife blade. Knife blades are a lot more accurate than pencils, and that's how most of finished carpenters really do things. So you use a knife blade, you put a mark on both sides of each hinge, just like this, all the way up. Then, once you do that, you pull the jamb off like this. Set it on a work table. Loosen the hinge and pull it off. And if we look at a hinge this way, we have the flat mounting surface. The edge right here should be the edge of the jamb and the edge of the door. All the rounded part and the round of the hinge should be on the inside of where the hinge goes. So this is the line we want to line up on both the door and on the jamb when we do that. So we can open these up, come to where our marks are, line this edge with the edge of the door jamb just like this onto our marks. Hold that really tight. Get your knife out again. Come from the outside of the jamb, scribe a line on the straight side, on both sides. When you have grain, all wood will have grain. On this, the grain tends to go away from the hinge. On this direction, but toward the hinge, we go that way. So we're going to want to scribe the line so the grain is pulling the knife blade into the hinge, not away. So we're going to scribe it from this side that way to work with the grain. So once we mark each edge, the top, then you go around the corners like this. So you mark that on all three hinges. And it's a good idea to make several cuts when you do that so you get a proper depth in there. is there's two ways to cut the meat out. One is with a chisel. The other was a router. Router is a little bit more consistent with whatever you're going to do. So to find the hinge height, we have the stop right here, and we have the jamb part where the door and the hinges mount. If we take a router, set it on the door stop, and lightly press it down so you're okay. We better look at the cutter first. This is a non-bearing, flat cutting tip right here, so you can make flat cuts. So what we're doing is we're putting the table of the router onto the doorstop and pushing it down so just the tip of the cutter just touches the jamb part. So we set that just like this. This I already set. Well, that will give us no cut right there. Preferred way of getting the depth so you don't guess all the time is getting a machinist tool. And you see, I've been using this a lot with some of the videos. This is a vernier caliper. It costs about $20. You can pick them up on eBay, different places like this. This measures in thousandths of an inch. And you can, this is a inside measurement, this here's an outside measurement, and down here's a depth measurement. All that moves from this wheel right here is the thumb wheel that you can move this back and forth. So you wipe your edges off, make sure they're clean, squeeze that together, make sure that your dial indicates to 0 right there. If not, you can just turn it. This is a lock screw to hold that on. So what we do is we open the hinge. Here's a more accurate part. You measure what the depth of that is. This here is, we pull this off. This is 89 thousandths of an inch. So whatever depth we put on the router, we're going to add 90 thousandths of an inch, and the depth of the hinges will be cut perfectly. So if we come here, measure this. This is 563 thousandths. So if we add another 90, that should be 653 thousandths. We can then hold our router like this, put the depth gauge on the top, press that table so it's just perfect, lock it. So now with this height, what we can do is we can go ahead and cut our holes. You go almost up to the edge. If your eyes aren't really good, it's really good to wear a pair of cheaters. Get real close to the edge, and then you finish it off with a good sharp chisel to make the ends. So I'll cut one of these just so we can see how this works. It's always good to wear ear and eye protection when you do this. These are noisy, and they throw a lot of sawdust. Okay, what I did is, because the jamb part is so away from the doorstop, I found some material so that we can shim up from the jamb side to the same height as the door material. And this is some pallet wood I have with a piece of cardboard. This gives us almost the exact height to stick this on both sides. And now when I cut this, the depth of everything's going to be right. So now I can turn this on. We can go ahead and cut this. So once that's done, chisel alongside of your you want to get it tight, tap it into place. Tap it in, and there you have the first hinge. It's pretty tight. Since I was trying to hold those extra blocks, it got a little sloppier than I really like. That's the bottom one. I'll hold those a little tighter. I'll turn this off, get the other ones, show you where we go from here. Okay, now we've got all the hinges cut with a router, trimmed up with a chisel here. Next thing we do is we check and make sure everything fits. So this one, it looks like one edge is a little bit tight. We tap that with a hammer, that goes flush. So that's good. We tap it in, make sure that those lines of the hinges line up with the outside. And why I'm saying that, one thing that you want to do with an exterior door is you're going to want to put weather stripping right against your door stop. Weather stripping comes in different widths. I got 5/16 width, so I made the width from the edge of the jamb to the door stop a 1/4 inch, so it compresses that door stop a 1/16 of an inch, which isn't a lot, but it should be enough to seal it. So we've got two that fit well. We stick it on the third one. That looks like that's going to be good. Hit it down once, so that's all going to be good. Now we can go ahead and put the hinges back on the door. Next thing you do is the header of your jamb. Everything's going to have the jamb side and the doorstop side. We always want about 3/32 of an inch clearance from the jamb to the edge of the door. That's halfway between a 1/16 and an 1/8. So when we measure the width of the door, this door is just a hair over 31 and 15/16 of an inch. So if we add 3/32, or if we add 3/32 to that, from here to here should be just over 31 and an 1/8, which this one is. So that's perfect. That means this will sit down on this just like that. So now we have to figure out what height we need to make the doorstop on the jamb side to have this fit in there. So I measured off of the door. This right here is the door height plus 3/32 of an inch. I measure from that mark to the top of this, that's 9/16 of an inch. I can either measure that or just take a square from that mark, come over here just like that, and I can either cut this down with a router, or I can use a chop saw, or I can use a more of a finished hand saw, something like a jeweler's saw, or jeweler's hand saw would really be probably the best. I'm going to do this with a router instead. So what we'll do is I'm going to cut this line with a knife, set the router height. We can just set the router table now that the hinges are done. I'll make this so you can see this. Set the router table right on top of the jamb. Undo the lock nut. push this down so that cutter just hits the jamb side. Depth is right. We've already got our mark. Cut this with a knife. Put back on safety glasses, and it's warm, so I'm sweating in these. Okay, so once that's cut, got that line, I set that there to make sure that our lines mark up. And I've got to pull just a hair more off of this face. I'll do that with a chisel. Then we'll do the other side. We'll put it together and hang the door. Okay, now that we have all our pieces cut and everything's to the right length, go ahead and put the hinge back on. You're going to hang this with just 2 hinges because I don't have a matching third one. So we'll do that later. So I'm going to hang this with just the top and the bottom hinge. But we'll see what the trick is to fix that. So pull the door back over here. You always want to hang the hinges with the pin up. You typically want to do the 2 outside screws first. If you put them a little bit more toward the top side of the hole, it'll suck them up so they're really tight. Once that's on, flip the hinges over just like that. Set the hinge in place, grab a screw, and I'm going to set on this side, middle one first. Okay, so now I've got the jamb tacked back on. We can take this over to where the hole is, put the rest of the jamb together once I hook the compressor up, and show you how to hang these. So I'll have to close this off here and move it to the inside.